Grief Karga said you were coming.
What else did he say?
He said you were the best in the parsec. Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
You are a Mandalorian. Your ancestors rode the great mythosaur.
Your name will be legendary.
I don't know if you heard, but the Empire is gone.
We have you 4-1.
I like those odds.
Hello and welcome to Mandalorian Minute, a Who Watches podcast about the Disney Plus series The Mandalorian. I'm Travis Fishburne.
I'm Alex Brunel.
I'm Dustin Meadows.
And I'm Ryan DeVere.
And this week we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 8, Chapter 16, The Rescue. I said I was not going to be doing that again, but it's the season finale. Everything's out the window. Including so many things. But yeah,
including Baby Yoda. They threw him out the window. Spoilers.
I cannot believe it. So many jaw-dropping instances in this finale.
I did not expect them to recast Pedro Pascal with Ahmed Best. Did not see that coming at all.
No, I really enjoyed that. Me-like. No, this episode is directed by Peyton Reed, which is exciting that they brought Peyton Reed back to do one. I was really expecting Jon Favreau, and I think he did a tremendous job, and I think everybody's really thrilled about this episode. I mean, even though the end credits do not feature any artwork, so
that was a bit of a bummer, but I liked
I
liked the cinematic feel that kind of gave us too.
Yeah, and there's nothing important
that
in
was
the credits
very tongue in
anyway,
cheek.
so.
I don't really care about that at that moment. But yeah,
you were too busy blowing
Alex,
your nose and drying your eyes.
Yeah. What was your reaction watching this? What was
blowing my nose and drying my eyes for like the last 10 minutes straight? I mean, like as soon as an X-wing shows up and it's like heavily implicated it's a Jedi, I'm just like to Angela, I'm like, babe, what Jedi do we know that flies an X-wing? And then there's a green lightsaber and you see a gloved hand and I'm choking back tears because I'm just like, this can't be this badass and like happening. Like this is nonsense. Like holy crap. Every single department on this show firing on all cylinders. I do, because it probably won't come up in the show, but I just want to say like this may be the best score this show has ever gotten.
Oh yeah.
There were a lot of easy choices that Ludwig Göransson could have made, especially during the last 15 minutes, in terms of like pulling from original trilogy themes and stuff like that. But he chose not to do that. He chose to keep.
And he would have every right to.
Totally. But here, whoever the brain trust chose to like keep the music in this show and bring character like Luke Skywalker into this show rather than taking this show and putting it with Luke in the, and the other thing I loved about this show is it wasn't one of these big finales where like everyone, like, yes, we had the, one party in one place and Din in another place, but it wasn't like this expansive thing. It was like a really focused, character driven finale the whole way through that was really, really strong.
Yeah.
So, man, like, huge kudos to everybody. Like, wow, this is crazy. And then,
Wow.
Yes. And then, like, the post-credits scene is like, what? And I'll talk about that more when we get there. But like, holy crap! I will say I don't love that Star Wars has introduced the idea of post-credit scenes.
Yeah, it's a Marvel thing.
It's yeah, but I don't care really that much because my excitement overshadows my complaints. So
yeah.
So wow.
Dustin, what was your wow factor with this episode?
Oh man, wow. No, I dug it. It was a great episode. With a lot of what Alex was saying, like I was tapping my fiance. I was like, "Do you know who ship that is? Do you know who ship that is?" And then she even made the comment. She was like, "Oh, it's a gloved hand. I know who it is." But yeah, it was really great. I mean, the action was amazing. We got some really great action sequences this episode.
Yeah.
Like even before that big payoff at the end, with Luke showing up and that really, really emotional farewell between Mando and Grogu. Sorry, Baby Yoda. It was a great episode. And I'll talk a little bit more about it, but like the reaction that I saw was a lot of people were either how we've been about it at this point, like they were super stoked on it, or a lot of people was like, "Oh, that's lazy." They're leaning on nostalgia, and I'll save for deeper into the episode about that. But like I feel like they earned everything that they did this episode.
Totally.
Like I feel like everything landed. Nothing felt cheap to me.
No.
It all made sense. Like it wasn't like, oh, Palpatine's alive out of nowhere. It's like, no, it makes sense that we're seeing these things within the timeline and the reality of this universe. Like all of this fits. None of this seems out of place or forced.
Right.
Yeah. Everything about it just like makes so much sense. From the big reveal of Luke Skywalker, like you said, it actually fitting, it being so obvious. Like has been talks for weeks. Who is the Jedi gonna be? And
right.
It's like, it's the most obvious one.
Yeah, like
I guess people just were not like ready for or
who would? Yeah, I mean,
to
like
hope that could be the case.
Exactly, but like, yeah, realistically, who's the most force sensitive like Jedi that's out there still? It's probably Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
I was 90-10 on it being Luke or anyone else.
Or anyone else.
Yeah.
Luke or Dash Rendar.
Oh.
Yeah.
The only thing that could have made it better for Dustin.
I mean, I would have loved Dash Rendar, but it wouldn't make sense that he was the one showing up.
That is correct.
It was obviously going to be Ki-Adi-Mundi.
He's too busy with the Wookiees.
Yeah. Bring back my boy Kit Fisto. Let's get him.
It was Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Moving on.
But Ryan, how about your reaction to this?
I mean, episode? I watched the finale and then I just had to go sit and decompress for a while. I was like, I've been really nervous this season. They get closer and closer to like mainline stories and like other story arcs from Clone Wars and stuff. And I've been very cautiously optimistic about like, oh, that's cool, but I would like to keep some distance. I don't want to, I don't, there's so many options to like misstep. And like, we just got a trilogy of mainline movies that I felt like just didn't deliver. And I was like, I would like Mandalorian to stay separate from that. And then this episode kind of wraps everything up in an absolute fantastic way. And like, I'm left feeling like that last like 3 minutes of Rogue One when Darth Vader shows up and you're just like, oh, and like you feel the intensity of what the main characters of Star Wars bring to the normal folk. And that's this episode all the way through is like, you've got these little elements and stuff. And then Luke shows up and it's like, oh gosh, he like brings this intensity with him, this whole lore that follows him. He really is a powerful Jedi now. And just the rest of the episode carries it there so beautifully. And I'm like you guys, I did not, I saw the X-Wing and I was trying to make it fit into any other Jedi other than Luke. I was like, oh, okay, so it's just, X-Wing, okay. Oh, and there's an Astro Droid. Okay, I mean, I guess Ahsoka was really good friends with R2. Maybe she found another one and she's right, No, I just...
Wedge is a Jedi now.
You're right, yeah. I was trying to make anything else fit than the most obvious answer.
It was Dave Filoni as the X-Wing pilot coming in to save the day.
Porkins is back from the dead.
Oh, yeah.
All of that seems more plausible to me than what we got.
No, I know. Yeah, totally. Especially considering the other total implausibility being in the teaser for Boba Fett at the end of the episode, which we'll get to. But I mean, it's just like we have two totally insane things. Sorry, Ryan. Not to.
No, keep going. I mean,
that's all. Like to do that twice in the same episode, once in like a significant way and another way that maybe could be qualified as fan service, but is just like kind of really fun instead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. So without further ado, we can get right into it. This episode, it comes in hot, and it just begins with this action sequence with an Imperial shuttle that's being chased by the Slave One. And right off the bat, I had a reaction because the Imperial shuttle is my favorite Star Wars ship. So I got really excited seeing that. And then, yeah, it gets overtaken by the Slave One, and Cara Dune and Mando have a little showdown with some Imperial pilots.
Yeah, to see like you, I love the Imperial shuttle. I have the image up right now. I've always loved this design. I've always just thought it was so cool. The fight sequence is great. It's great to see the Slave One fight. I love how much of a scene this is in the cockpit once Cara Dune and Fennec Shand get on board.
Mm-hmm.
What's our scientist friend's name? Does he have a name, or is he just
Dr. Pershing?
Dr. Pershing.
Dr. Pershing. So great. I believed it really just easily serves the story for him to like truthfully divulge literally everything they want to know immediately. Mm-hmm. But it also seems it felt like, oh yeah, that's exactly what he would do. Like he really seems like this guy that's like just a scientist, and he happens to be working for the Empire, but really all he cares about is doing the work, and if he's going to get killed, he's going to give up whoever will keep him alive longer.
Oh yeah, he seems a little caught in the middle.
Yeah,
based on the in the episode The Sin last season, when Mando shows up and takes Grogu, and he's like, he's just a child, leave him alone. And you're like, this could be a guy just like pleading for his life, or he could have some semblance of morality to him.
Right.
Don't know.
Right.
And I feel like we still kind of don't know, but it's in line with who we saw in that episode.
Yeah, totally.
He definitely seems almost like a borderline. I mean, the war is over, but he essentially seems kind of like an unclaimed prisoner of war that the Empire's held onto to suit their own ends.
It kind of does seem like that. Not totally dissimilar from I can't believe I'm blanking on his name, but the guy from Rogue One, the Death Star designer who was basically captured by the Empire to make the Death Star.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh yeah,
Galen Erso.
Galen Erso. Thank you. Yeah, like he feels like that kind of a character. This guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, the only live action Star Wars character to wear glasses.
I noticed his sunglasses. I noticed like, he's wearing shades in space.
Art Carney, who we just saw in the holiday special.
Yeah.
What is Maz's goggles?
Well, they're goggles.
I mean,
they seem more like they serve a functional like work purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like welding goggles or something.
I would argue that glasses in general functional work purpose.
I see what you're saying, but I mean like a purpose beyond like just having to wear them to see better all the time.
Yeah.
Like because it doesn't seem like something she wears all the time. I don't remember. I just remember that when her eyes aren't wearing them, it haunts my dreams.
I think you've referred to them as butthole eyes, Dustin.
I have. A couple of leather Cheerios.
Good God.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's really the only Star Wars guy with glasses.
In live action, that's the only one I know of. There was a character in Rebels that was voiced by Josh Gad that wore glasses, but that's the only one I could think of.
If I was a Star Wars character, I'd wear sunglasses all the time so I could just whip them off and say cool things in space. But Call me Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
And then I just want to say the Imperial in this scene too. The pilot that like shoots his co-pilot that seems like he's wavering, and then is, that whole thing. Him tormenting Cara Dune, him shooting him in the face. Like, that is one of the most violent deaths in Star Wars.
And there's no cutaway.
No.
Like
his face is in the frame, and then there's a blast for 3 frames, and then he's gone.
There's actually a couple of deaths like that.
Yeah, this is a pretty brutal episode.
I love this about Mando because I feel like it's the most menacing any of the Imperials have ever been.
I absolutely feel that way too. Like, this guy felt like a crazy threatening person, and not just a lackey.
And like sadistic, even.
Yeah.
Like, because we got that with Titus Welliver's officer. We got that with Richard Brake's character last episode.
Oh yeah.
And that's not unfounded. Like, Moff Tarkin was absolutely that way, and like the other Moffs in that boardroom are absolutely that way. But we until this point, I totally agree, we hadn't seen that kind of like real, like, really gross sadism.
Tarkin is very controlled.
Yeah.
He's menacing, but like it doesn't feel like he's like rubbing it in or like taking joy necessarily in it. Like, he's arrogant for sure, but like he doesn't seem like he's twisting the knife and sticking it in like just to kind of see the look on their face.
They remind me of
people absolutely are.
Yeah, they remind me of some people in the real world, but that's a whole different conversation.
That's a whole other time.
But I mean, all in all, this scene, the way it plays out in this episode is wholly unnecessary. It really was kind of a risk that they took that takes focus away from the story that this episode has to tell. But I think it added such crucial importance to like just Cara Dune's character in general, but what she represents in Mandalorian of like, we're post-war, but there are still some really hard feelings. There's still a lot of damage done, and this this Imperial trooper, he has a point. I mean, he saw millions of his comrades were snuffed out in a moment, and like, it's just this good world building that they've hit on here and there, and we had that a couple weeks ago with what's his face.
With Mayfeld,
yeah, where he's carrying battle scars, right? And like, there's a whole generation of these people of just no-name characters in the Star Wars universe that the course of their life has been uprooted because of what that war meant. I think every time they bring it up, it's really powerful. It feels appropriate to the current context of the world and America. There are two sides to the coin. And I just appreciated that they left this in. They didn't need to. It didn't serve a purpose in the function of this story, of this episode story, but it breathes so much life into the Star Wars universe where we're at in this slice of time.
Yeah. I like that we've gotten a couple of showdowns this season. Because a few episodes back we had Mando and Lang, Michael Bihn's character was, and that like the tension was built, but it was like we knew that like Mando wasn't going to throw down unless he had to. Whereas with this scene with Cara Dune and Mayfeld's last week, it was like we're all just waiting on them to draw and like just blast this person in the face, and it's just again. Like Mando's kind of detached from a lot of the implications of what's happening in this universe. And we see how he's a little more controlled in what he does. Whereas Mayfeld and Cara Dune, like you said, very much are carrying those wounds and those scars. And they absolutely feel some kind of way about it.
Yeah.
So we talked for like 15 minutes about the scene in the intro that doesn't bear much on the plot.
There's not really much else to talk about this episode, though.
Yeah.
Sorry, Trav, I interrupted you.
They partially deafen Dr. Pershing, and then later we see in his next scene he's got burn marks on his ear.
See, I loved that detail so much. I loved him like being like right after that happening. Such great detail.
I also love the line when he talks about serving on the Death Star, and she says, "Which one?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great little quip.
Yeah. So moving on from that scene, we get Din Djarin and Boba. They go and they find Bo-Katan, and the Sasha Banks character, who I did not fill in the the name of the character here. I will do that in post. And they insult Boba and tell him he is not Mandalorian. And then they have a showdown, and Mando convinces them to join their cause and go after Gideon. And Bo is interested just because of the Darksaber. And they come up with a plan to take on the crew of the ship to distract and allow Mando to go after Grogu.
I like in this scene, there's two things that I love. As Bo-Katan gets that sick burn in on Boba Fett when he mentions his father, and she goes, "Don't you mean your donor?"
Yeah.
And then we get, I think, our first wrestling move in the live-action Star Wars universe when Sasha Banks uses her jetpack to DDT Boba Fett.
So good. This scene is so great.
Yeah. It's such a fun little fight
start to
scene.
finish. Yeah.
The thing I really loved about this scene, the way they positioned all the characters on a writing level, just like, it's so clean. There are three characters with separate and distinct goals. We have Din, who just wants the child back. We have Cara Dune, who needs to take in Gideon. And we have Bo-Katan, who needs to win the Darksaber from Gideon. These disparate goals being brought together, and if the plan works correctly, everyone can get what they want. Like, that setup and coming from all these disparate places and actually culminating in a thing that makes total logical sense all throughout and doesn't feel at all convoluted is very impressive.
Yeah.
And like, you might not even think about it because it's just so damn clean. But it's just put together really, really well. So like, kudos to Favreau on the script of this and like the whole team that came up with that convergence of everything. Because damn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that was really great. Also, they talk about him being an insult to the armor and how they want to go back to Mandalore, and he's like, "Empire, turn that planet to glass."
Yeah, now I want to see it more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's stuff that's happened since Rebels, apparently. To Mandalore that I'm interested in seeing.
We're probably going to find out.
I mean,
Yeah,
right.
there's
Eventually,
quite a few things.
if we've gone to Typhon at this point, we've got to go to Mandalore. Eventually,
Eventually.
Especially with what happens towards the end of this episode.
Yeah.
But man, just even the moment where the Mandalorian and Boba Fett walk into this cantina, they're so cool. Like, there's just power behind it. The design is good. And then they go meet two other Mandalorians, and you get this good bar fight. And like, the Mandalorians as a concept they're almost as cool as Jedi, right? And in some ways are way cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a weird thing because like 15 years ago or so, all they were was like a cool costume.
That's literally it.
Yeah. And so like that's all it was. And there was a series of books written by Karen Travis which explored Mandalorian culture, and people were really into that. And then in the Clone Wars, they said, nope, that's not canon. We're going to make some new Mandalorian canon. And it took a while to get going, but it's crazy that like what they established in that show and what they've been establishing in this show are different, and they're disparate, and yet just like in what you were talking about, Alex, they're still like converging and making sense and making things cool and interesting with a group of these characters based off of one guy in Empire Strikes Back that people thought was cool but didn't serve any other purpose.
Right. This was vocally me for like decades.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't understand the appeal of Boba Fett. Like, I'm far more interested in like 4 of the other bounty hunters on that lineup.
Yeah, everybody wants to know what Bosk is up to.
I was
don't
always,
joke.
I wanted to. I was interested in like the weird buddy adventures of Zuckuss and Forlom, and like
Zuckuss.
and IG-88. I just always thought was the most badass thing, which like obviously so did like Favreau. So
You're not concerned about Dengar and his toilet paper wrapped head.
Well, we've got some things to explore with Dengar apparently to see how he ends up the way he does in Rise of Skywalker.
Right? That's how not to do what Favreau and Filoni did at the end of this episode with the Boba Fett teaser. That's how not to do one of those fan service things, is the Dengar and Rise of Skywalker. Because it's just like, why? And then to like not have that be discussed at all, like that doesn't what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn Rise of
While we're still on this scene, one note I want to throw out, an observation I had. I didn't realize before the owl artwork on Koska Reeves's helmet, which is Sasha Banks' character, and to me it looks like either the way somebody on a roller derby team would decorate their helmet, or the way someone who really loved Rush's Fly By Night would decorate their helmet.
Nice.
Like, it looks like 1970s like step van heavy metal spray paint art,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's also still kind of cool.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a motif with the women Mandalorians since Clone Wars. All of them kind of look like that. And then along with Ahsoka's bird Morai, like Sabine starts incorporating that more into her armor and artwork. So it's it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was the second scene.
Mm-hmm.
We're half an hour
also-
deep.
It's gonna be a long episode.
Yeah, and the setup. And we've got a few good lines while they're setting everything up. Cara Dune brings back a line that we had heard earlier, that those stormtroopers are going to be a real skank in the scud pie, which I thought it was like stank, but it's skank in the scud pie.
Really?
According to the subtitles, yeah.
I hate when I get skanks in my scud pie.
Skanks in the scud pie. Oh man.
That's really
Boba Fett
gross.
has a line about the something calling the something slimy or something. Like, let's see. It's I
Yeah,
don't remember what it is.
Like, it's calling the puck out half of what he said.
Yeah. There's a couple good, and then we got a couple just Star Wars curse words.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we got
Flying,
the Dank Ferric again.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we got the Star Wars Gore Ram this season.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what that is.
And so yeah, they're on their way to Moff Gideon's light cruiser, and Bo-Katan so intent on going after Gideon and explaining, Moff Gideon is mine, got it? And so, like, to me, I'm like, well, that's definitely not happening. Like, somebody else is definitely going to be taking care of the job and complicating things. And then we get this awesome crash landing sequence in which the crew they use the shuttle as they always have to do. They have to use the Imperial Shuttle to crash land into the launch tube of the light cruiser and start taking out the troops. And then Gideon orders the Dark Troopers to be activated, and Mando has a close run-in with one before dispatching him with the Beskar.
Okay. This scene of the... First of all, seeing TIE fighters launch out of that tube is one of the coolest Star Wars ship things I think I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
This was so cool. We've never seen that before in live action. And, like, then incorporating, like, the officer who's, like, the hangar bay manager, like basically on the floor, like that little bit of world building. I'm like, oh, of course there would be that guy.
Yeah, you gotta coordinate.
But to like see that is this whole other thing that really just like makes the world feel so much more complete. And I loved that detail work so much.
Yeah.
And the fight with the Dark Trooper, like it actually felt like there's stakes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put up this picture you sent, Travis, of Rock'em Sock'em Mando.
That's all I can think of.
Just taking him.
Yeah.
Well, this is the first time that we, aside from trying to grab Baby Yoda on the Jedi planet from the force field, like we really see him get knocked around,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a welcome change because, like, well, I mean, we got that last week, but like this time, like you genuinely like he's gonna win, but like you feel like maybe he might not without some outside help.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and before we saw him in a vulnerable state with vulnerable armor, and in this one we're like, we've got two pretty impervious forces fighting each other.
Yeah, I was really wondering, like, in this, like, is he just gonna break through the wall? Is the helmet gonna crunch eventually? I don't know what's gonna happen here.
Yeah. Before we get too far into this, do we ever get an answer to what happens to Dr. Pershing?
No.
Oh yeah, we don't, do we?
He's in the scene, and then the next scene is their, assault on the cruiser. And I guess it's safe to assume that he's still on board Slave One after Boba Fett makes the jump, right? I mean, he's not on the Imperial.
He was on
he's not on the.
Oh yeah, he probably still would be on Slave One.
So
and then
Boba Fett
somewhere.
Yeah, I just on the rewatch I realized, like, oh, we never really know what happens to him. For a character like we said before, he's kind of this guy that's just caught in the middle.
Yeah,
I was surprised that we didn't get a resolution to that.
Yeah,
I assume he's still alive. I just figured that he probably ends up back with them when all is said and done. Because I mean, we know he's not with Boba Fett later on. So.
And we know, based on things at the end of the episode, we know Fennec Shen makes it back to him.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit of a character that's been a reoccurring character. We don't know what became of him.
Yeah, true.
I would assume that he's probably with Cara Dune, if anything.
Makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Either in custody or as a new ally to the
We'll get another
alliance.
We'll get another Grief Karga. What's the Moloch? What is that his name?
Mithril.
Mithril.
Yeah.
That's
Oh yeah.
We'll get now. It's the four of them instead.
Mm-hmm. I also in this fight scene with Mando and the Dark Trooper, I got real Terminator 2 vibes when he lights the Dark Trooper up with the flame. It's just like this flaming robot. I was like, this is horrifying, and wow, this is really cool.
Yeah,
The whole fight felt like Terminator.
Yeah,
kind of did.
Jesus.
Yeah, the fire was great. It was like it didn't do anything to harm him. It just made him look cooler, and that was it.
And I love that, like, he's panicked the whole fight. Like, like not until he gets the Beskar, like, and finally, like, drives it through the robot's neck or whatever. Like, he's like everything he's doing is a desperation move. Like the whistling birds, the flamethrower, all of it.
Yeah,
and it's really cool, and it sells the stake of that fight.
He's like in a desperate move in a video game fighting a boss, and he's just button mashing, hoping everything works.
Yeah.
And to that end, I was thinking about this the other day when the armorer gives him all of the fancy stuff he has now, including the birds. She says they're very rare, so use them sparingly, or something to that effect. And it is, but the way it plays out in the show is it's like if this was D&D, this is like one of those powerful effects a character can do, but only once per long rest.
Yeah,
I think like once per episode he can use.
Yeah, because he's definitely broken him out.
Yeah, he kind of
3-4 times in that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
is he's only able to use the whole salvo, right? Like
I think so.
Yeah.
Never seen him just use one. He's always like, all of you.
Well, I think because it's
I also
like
love, I know it's the second
is...
time it's happened this season.
Sorry, Dustin, you go ahead.
Oh no, that's all right. I was just gonna say, I know it's already the second time it's happened this season, but I fully love just the tactic of blowing people out the airlock.
Mm-hmm.
Always,
Like,
it's
I-
always the way
effective.
to go.
I
yeah.
don't think I will ever see that gag in a movie or show and be like, I'm kind of over blowing stuff out the airlock.
No, I agree. I'm always in for blowing things out the
Yeah.
airlock. It's always the greatest solution.
Path of least resistance.
Also, the sound that the Dark Troopers make while they're powering up, along with the score, it sounded like a dubstep.
It
Yeah.
did, and I kind of loved it as much as
Yeah.
I didn't want to, but like, it's
Which
also
we
like
discovered last week was invented by Ben Burt.
absolutely was
Yep.
100%. But like, it's also a super bold move to go that fully like obviously electronic with the score on Goranson's part. That is like a very bold Star Wars score move, and I thought it worked like really well here.
Oh yeah.
It fits with the juxtaposition that is the Dark Troopers anyway.
Totally.
They are the next thing. They are, like, they're better than stormtroopers. They're more. They come after the fact of the Empire falling, but they also they come from a different source because their first appearance was video games, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I thought it fit really well.
Well, speaking of which, I brought up my my holiday special Boba Fett. I also found one of these, which I did not even know I had.
Oh heck.
Yeah.
Look at
Oh,
that.
nice.
So
Oh.
I was like, what?
And they
remember
look
that.
a lot like that still.
They do.
Right.
And so while that's all going down, we've got like Fennec Shen and Cara Dune and Bo-Katan just taking out everybody else.
Literally everybody. Holy crap.
It's so great.
Like girls really
Also-
do get it done.
Yeah. That's
This
what I
is
was
the real
thinking, too.
version of that though, right?
Yeah, this is that. This is the thing in Avengers Endgame, but it actually, just like you said with everything else, Alex, it logically makes sense that they're all
Right. It's
like
just
this
like
and doing this.
it's like this is the circumstance. It's not this is the event. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. Like it was
Yeah.
so freaking cool. God. Yeah.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as live action Star Wars, this is the most named women characters we've ever had on screen at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
That
like,
is-
it has to
yeah,
be.
It's got to be true.
Yeah.
Think so.
And yeah, it's just a great sequence.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you brought that up though about the Endgame scene because this felt very organic by comparison, and by extension because of that it felt better in the story context. It was like, oh yeah, these are chicks that could just. I'm a little sad that we didn't figure out a way to get Ahsoka in there, but.
Well, like
It
that's
worked.
probably why
I'm
Ahsoka
just-
wasn't in there because it wasn't the Avengers version. Like Favreau is
Right.
learning from mistakes that have been made with this kind of a scene before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
Go ahead, Dustin.
go ahead. No, you go first.
The bit where they're running across the bridge, and the stormtroopers come out on the other end, and the two Mandalorians just swan dive over the edge was just like, oh, that's so cool. That makes so much sense, and it just works visually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, it was really good. All I was gonna say, as cool as it would have been to see Ahsoka, I don't think the motivation is really there for her to have been along for the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, then why would we need Luke Skywalker
I was
showing up
gonna
later
say.
to take out the Dark Troopers?
Right.
So I mean, I think it fits, and I mean, and we know we're gonna see Ahsoka again now too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, these four, like, it was great. And I saw somebody made the comments like, oh, they made it look so easy. It's like, they're all amazing at what they do. Like, two of them are Mandalorians who are, like traditionally some of the best warriors in the galaxy. Another is a former shock trooper with extensive military training. And the other is a career assassin / sniper. Like, yeah, they're going to cherry pick everything that comes their way, especially when they're stormtroopers who are known for sucking at their jobs.
Very, very true.
Like it'd be like being mad about Shaq beating a bunch of 6-year-olds at basketball. Like, oh, you mean this 8-foot tall, beautiful homunculus schooled a bunch of children in the sport he's been a professional in for over a decade? Yeah, no, everything about that sentence adds up.
Kudos for homunculi references.
That's a great word.
It's
I
a
don't
great
get to
word.
say it nearly enough.
No, it's great.
So what's the point of having a room in a ship that is just accessible to space? You make one misstep and you just fall out into open space.
Well, I don't know. Interesting that the artificial gravity went all the way down.
Yeah.
Maybe they were like caught suspended where the gravity
that's...
ended and space began.
Maybe.
I mean, clearly that's where they're stored. Like the only thing I could think of is maybe that's meant as like one of the docking stations when they do connect to another ship or a port.
Yeah.
Because I mean, typically that's what the airlock is like it's their junction between whatever they're traveling between, so that they can actually secure it, so it's airtight. So that's what I always assume anytime there's an airlock. But again, I also never get mad anytime something gets blown out in airlock. So I don't care if it's practical airlock, just a for show airlock.
Have the whole ship made of airlocks.
Yeah. It is the safest place on the ship. Like, the airlock.
And then the crew, they take over the bridge while Mando confronts Gideon, who tells them that he can have Grogu as he's already taken his blood, but then that's a lie. So he attacks him from behind, and we get this epic duel, which ends with Mando defeating Gideon with the Beskar spear.
Yeah, this might have been one of my favorite Gideon moments. Is the line where he tells the Mandalorian to assume that he knows everything.
Yeah,
so
like
good.
that was like Gus Fring levels of kind of menacing and like just asserting dominance. And it's like he's not gotten a lot of opportunities this season to like say that to anyone that isn't a tiny child. So it was nice getting to see him say it to a grown man.
Yeah.
And as soon as that exchange started, like he's like, "Oh, take it." I was like, "No, it's not this easy, right?
No.
Like that's not how this. Like, imagine if it's just like, yeah, you can leave my ship, bye," and then roll credits, the theme starts playing.
Yeah, I don't think people would have been nearly as thrilled
No.
about this episode.
No. Giancarlo Esposito is so good in this scene leading up to the battle. And the way Pedro Pascal is playing it too is also just so great. And the character, just Mando, really giving in to, he knows better than to do what he did in that situation. He knows better than that. And he's really just letting his eagerness to reunite with Grogu just totally cloud his judgment in a very realistic, believable way. And the ensuing fight scene and with the Beskar steel versus the Darksaber, so cool. And the little bit of added stakes where you could see the Darksaber was gonna melt through that Beskar in another few seconds was so great to just ratchet that tension up just a little bit extra, and damn, so good.
Yeah, it was really good. I was so glad to finally see that in action. Because Giancarlo Esposito had said that Gideon is good with it, and I'm like, well, he wouldn't have said that if they hadn't shot it already.
Yeah, he wouldn't have said that if he didn't have to deal with training to do it.
Yep.
Yep. It's also great too. One of the other things about this scene is I think we can safely assume at this point now that Moff Gideon is not a force-sensitive person. He just has the Darksaber.
Right.
Which
it's a symbol of power for him, I think.
Yeah, because at this it seemed like that potential might be there, but then it's like, if it is, why aren't you force choking people? So
right.
But yeah, it was nice to finally have that unspokenly confirmed and get a really amazing fight out of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And was it this scene or was it the scene in the shuttle earlier where we get kind of extra confirmation that the drawing of the child's blood is to service like the cloning of the Emperor?
Yeah. Pershing says.
But someone says it's going to like the blood's going to be used to restore order to the galaxy.
Yeah,
basically.
Gideon says that right before the fight starts.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we now know that's what that is, pretty much. Yeah. Cool. All right.
We get confirmation in this episode that apparently his jetpack is pure Beskar as well.
Oh yeah,
and also does not have the same design flaw as Boba Fett's, because he gets, I mean, the Darksaber, right into the back and doesn't do anything.
Yep. It doesn't hit the wacky hijinks button.
No, that would have been hilarious. You get an Iron Man 1 scene of him just right in the wall.
Oh man, I'm glad we didn't get that.
Flying around, Goofy screaming.
Yeah,
screaming, it's turbo time.
The original out of control jetpack.
Yeah, I don't care what any fan says. If we don't get the Mandalorian saying it's turbo time next season, I'm walking away from the show.
I've just realized I've forgotten to watch Jingle All the Way as of yet this year.
Oh no,
I'll have to fix that.
There's still time, Alex.
I know, I'll have to fix it.
There's still
Which
time.
edit are you gonna watch?
Not the extended edition. The extended edition feels
not very
weird, and I think there's a scene that makes the movie darker. I can't remember what it is though.
Oh, that further confirms that Sinbad is a domestic terrorist.
Yeah, that's so
right, exactly.
There's that aspect. Yeah. Anywho.
So yeah, then Mando brings Gideon to the bridge, and he tries to give the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, who cannot take it as it needs to be won in combat. And he's like, "You never told me this."
Yeah.
So we should take this scene beat by beat, right? Like that's the first beat. Let's discuss that. Okay.
Yes. Just that aspect of it.
Okay.
Well, it's like I get where they're coming from with the idea that it needs to be won, but 4 episodes ago, weren't they just ragging on Mando for not taking his helmet off, and what a silly tradition that was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they were. And people. I mean, I haven't seen all of Rebels. Ryan, have you seen Rebels? I can't remember.
Yep.
Yeah. So
watched
Ryan
the
and
Rebels.
Travis, there's a thing I read online that conflicts with this scene.
Yeah, when this scene is going down, I'm already like thinking like, but didn't she? So the Darksaber was originally with Pre Vizsla, who lost it in combat to Darth Maul. Darth Maul had it for 10 to 15 years, and Sabine stole it from him. And then she wielded it for a while before finally giving it to Bo-Katan at the end of Rebels. And everyone seemed to rally around Bo-Katan as the leader of Mandalore at that point. So this, and people are saying like, oh, this like retcons that and it doesn't make sense. And why would Dave Filoni, that seems sloppy. And I'm like, no, there's definitely more story to tell. We do not know how she lost the Darksaber. We also know that Mandalore is turned to glass, apparently, from what Boba says. Something happened. And I wonder if it's because Bo-Katan tried to lead Mandalore and she did not properly do it, because she did not win it in combat the first time around, and people were not properly following her orders.
Interesting.
And uniting. So I think that might be why she's so gung-ho about doing it the right way this time.
That would make sense to me.
Yeah.
Huh, cool. I like that. I like knowing that now.
Yeah, well, and we've kind of covered this already, but there's obviously things that have happened with Mandalore and the Empire since Rebels that we just don't have answers for yet.
For sure.
There's a lot of things that have happened. I don't know, but yeah, I had the same thought too. It seems like the Darksaber has changed hands an awful lot for that to be the rule, the one rule that you have to follow.
Yeah, because it was originally stolen from the Jedi Temple.
Right.
Right.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I like it in terms of Mandalorian. It felt right, but in terms of overall Star Wars lore, it was a little.
I mean, theoretically, if we're playing by these rules, back to Darth Maul, and then somebody's got to challenge him for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this the same like as in Harry Potter? Like
the outer wand?
Whoever has to disarm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's a mixture of Elder Wand and the Iron Throne.
Yeah. It's a real weird corner to back yourself into.
So we've got just an interesting predicament there, which I think is going to be the main thrust of season 3. Because before Mando even, or before Bo-Katan even accepted this mission, she even brings up that she says, if you should manage to finish your quest, I would have you reconsider joining our efforts. Yeah. So definitely going to be a major.
Yeah, he's definitely thinking like, well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think we're headed towards the Mandalorian, Din Djarin sitting on the throne?
I don't know.
That look when you accidentally win a planet.
Yes.
Yeah. Certainly be an interesting direction.
I mean, at the beginning of this, I never would have thought that's the path that we're going down.
I had I thought like maybe he would get there eventually by the end of the series, but not accidentally halfway through.
Yeah, I definitely thought this was going to have more of a Shadows of the Empire vibe, where it's like all the main story is happening, but we're just kind of on the periphery of it with all this side stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like every now and then, like we'll learn a little bit more about the main conflict. But now it's like, oh, okay, Mando's front and center of this huge thing that came up in season 2.
Yeah.
So now, as everybody is just chilling on the bridge, the Dark Troopers, the whole platoon, they catch up with them and they start to board the ship. So they seal the blast doors and they prepare for a standoff when suddenly a lone X-Wing arrives and Luke Skywalker starts mowing down Death Troopers like Darth Vader did those rebel troops in Rogue One. And he arrives on the bridge and takes Grogu with him, but not before Grogu and Mando share one final helmetless scene together.
Yep.
You said it.
This is where the crying started.
Yeah. And almost no words.
Totally.
Like it's almost entirely just a look that Pedro Pascal has between him and Grogu. And oh man, his theater instructor was right. Keeping the mustache paid off because that's where he derives all his power from.
Yeah, like wow. The scene of Luke. Let's talk about Luke first.
Yeah.
Whole,
I mean, as soon as the X-Wing showed up, I'm like, that's him. That's Red 5, baby.
I think we all were just like, yep, we got a Skywalker again.
Yeah, I came home from work that day more intent on watching the show immediately because I didn't know, I had heard no spoilers, but I had gotten the sense that this was like a big effing deal. And so I just needed to watch it as soon as possible. And like, yeah, this Luke just tearing through all these Dark Troopers is so cool. I
was so excited. I'm like, we're gonna see
so
green
exciting.
lightsaber. And then we saw it, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And there's a gloved hand, and it's his robes, and like, man, it's so cool.
I love this because it was basically the his entrance to Jabba's palace in Jedi that we got. But if he'd like chugged a Red Bull right beforehand, it was just like real stoked on it.
Yeah.
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 God, yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
And sorry, Ryan, please.
I once again, like at the end of Rogue One, we don't get a lightsaber unopposed very often. Even
Right.
earlier in this episode, we get the dark saber, but then he's got the Beskar spear. But like, man, a lightsaber on its own is a weapon of crazy destruction.
Yeah. And the scene is also really interesting in that, right, it does kind of directly parallel this scene with Darth Vader in Rogue One. It, you know, in its intensity and in its violence, really. And it does go to illustrate also like where Luke is kind of at this point. Like for him to get to the point that we know he got to, this is kind of where he's in his cockiest. Like this is where he thinks the most of himself, is like right now. And that reads throughout that him tearing through the droids and in the whole following scene.
Yeah, I've got an exclusive clip here from when he enters the bridge. The elevator doors open and he says this.
You and your sidekick are finally in the grasp of
I was wondering where you were going with it. I was like, oh, that's not the Joker.
What is that from?
Jane Silent Bob, Strike Back.
Where he played Cockknocker.
Yeah.
Who's a guy with giant fists who punches people in the cocks.
Why they call you Cockknocker? Funny story.
Yeah, and then we get this, which I'm going to put the image up of. We get digitally de-aged Mark Hamill. So this was actually Mark Hamill. They shot this like a year ago, apparently. And that's a whole lot of computers on top of that face right there.
It is.
Yeah.
It definitely felt a bit Uncanny Valley to me, but I will say it felt no worse to me than Tarkin and Leia in Rogue One. It felt on that level. And for that level of special effect to be just on a TV show is just bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly, I thought it was a slight grade above Tarkin and Leia. Like you said, it's
the
still
texturing
very
is
much
better. The shading and texturing, but the mouth movement is still very stiff.
Yeah, it's still like it's very obviously a digital effect, but it looked a little more natural, and I think it helped too that it was lower lighting as well. I think that kind of helps them hide some mistakes with it and some flaws. But yeah, I was going to ask. I knew it was definitely him doing the voice, but I didn't know if he was actually the physical stand-in or not.
There was another actor who was doing the stand-in work.
Well, I thought there was another actor doing the stunt work, and then maybe it was Mark on set, or is that not correct?
See, I think the other guy like stood there as well because I think the body is different from Mark's, but I think he was there. I mean,
It's definitely smaller than he was in Skywalker.
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker for sure. Which is fine. Let Mark Hamill have dad bod.
That green milk is just like really fatty.
Yeah, it's that 2%, not the skim.
The whole lead up, the chin, you see it like under the cloak, and the whole time I'm thinking, looks like Sebastian Stan. That looks like Sebastian Stan's chin. They're gonna, and then it came up, and I was like, who is that?
Yeah. And again, this is such a great sequence that I'm fine with what flaws there are from an effects perspective because it still looks decent. And we saw him smash a Dark Trooper with a crate.
Yeah.
And then literally crush one to death.
Literally crushed Magneto style.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. So like, this raises the question of like deep fakes versus like digital recreation, right? Which are kind of two of the same, but we got in the same week we got what is it? I think it's called like Sassy Justice from the South Park guys. They did a deep fake of Donald Trump.
Oh, and right, yeah.
It looks really good, especially by comparison to this. And I wonder, I don't know. I wonder if we'll start seeing more of that. There's a couple special effects guys that I follow, and there was kind of a small conversation about it of like the people that are being hired right now, like the people that are learning how to do this deepfake technology really well are the boots on the ground people, not the people that are getting trusted with secrets like Luke Skywalker's in The Mandalorian. We're just like, the technology is still too new for the people that are young enough and hungry enough to learn it, to actually be in the rooms where the big decisions are getting made. And so I'm curious, like, it's obviously, this isn't a trend that's going to go away. We're going to get more and more and more of this. And part of being an actor is going to be, go get your face 3D scanned and we're going to reuse you forever.
Well, like that's the thing, that like, that's a really good point about it being like the people who are using the deepfake technology now versus like the people inside at ILM. Because it is a totally different kind of a thing. Like, deepfaking is AI, which is not part of a special effects workflow that exists to my knowledge. I might be totally wrong, but like special effects technology was generally more based in motion capture and computer generation, and not just like letting the computer do the heavy lifting on creating it in the first place.
Animation as well.
Yeah. And then, but it's going to take a show like this, because that was the same for the video game technology that powers the volume that Mandalorian shoots every episode on. Once it jumps over, and once people on the inside in ILM start working with people who are good at AI coding and things like this, that this is going to get absolutely nonsense. This is going to get crazy.
There's a movie with James Dean coming out.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Well, and essentially, didn't they do this or something similar to this in Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow? With, I think it was Laurence Olivier, but it's a lot of like archival footage that they worked around.
Oh, interesting.
So like it was either him or Peter O'Toole. I can't remember who, but like one of them where he was dead, and they worked with like archival footage and animated stuff around it. I'd have to look it up, but like that's the first time I remember seeing somebody was like, yeah, we made this movie out of old like with archive footage and stuff. I've not seen Sky Captain myself. I just remember reading that when it came out and thinking that was the most interesting thing about that movie.
Well, the first dead person cameo I remember is Humphrey Bogart in Last Action Hero from 1993. So
that was just photoshopping though. that was just cropping him out on a green screen.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was still pretty great.
Yeah.
The real heavy lifting was putting in Danny DeVito as an animated cat detective.
True.
And getting Robert Patrick to play T-1000 in a non-Terminator movie for the second or third time.
Yeah.
Robert Patrick had bills to pay.
Hey, get it, Robert Patrick.
But that guy would never. I want to say that as three alums of Bowling Green State University here, of which Robert Patrick was also an alumnus. We tried every time we put together the film festival to get him as a guest, and he never would do it. He wouldn't even entertain the concept.
I bet he'd do it now.
We had many more interesting people who said yes and fell through, but Robert Patrick would never come back to Bowling Green.
Oscar winner Eva Marie Saint, but not Robert Patrick.
Well, hey, we got Art LaFleur one year.
He was cool.
He was very nice.
This is quite the call out. We're gonna have to tag him when we upload this. We'll have to.
Yeah,
maybe we should have tried to get
it now.
Maybe we should
Explain the X-Files seasons 8 and 9.
Explain them. Explain them, Agent Doggy.
We should have gotten Robert Patrick's brother Richard Patrick from the band Filter. I bet he would have done it.
Holy crap! I forgot that was reality.
And then we just make him mad by asking him about the 5 years that he played in Nine Inch Nails instead of Filter.
All right.
Stay on target.
Sorry. Yeah.
I love that because it was such a hard left turn, and you just kept turning left the whole time. It was great.
And then eventually it's a circle.
And we're back.
So yeah, we got live action post Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker. It is crazy. And they have a farewell. Mando takes off his helmet, and like you said, it's a beautiful scene. And it just fills you with questions like where do things go without this being the central relationship and dynamic in the show.
Yeah.
And then I see you've got an image up right now. I thought there were similarities to the goodbye with Grogu and Din Djarin and Anakin and Shmi in the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
And because of that, it makes me wonder what the fate of Grogu is, because we've already seen him be a little aggressive at times,
especially for macaroons.
Yeah,
macaroons.
And Ahsoka's even
Din Djarin,
cautioned us.
yeah, losing in some arm wrestling.
Yeah, wow, what a scene. Grogu being scared, and then R2 coming out, and Grogu being like, "Oh, this thing," and going over,
The two of
and
them having a cute off.
and R2 remembering the time Yoda beat him with a stick and recoiling a little bit, which is like one of my top 5 favorite moments in The Empire Strikes Back is like that mischievous Yoda.
It's pretty good.
And
senile Yoda.
Yeah. And the sweetness of just like Luke understanding. Luke is like, great in this scene, kind of a dick, but like great, but great, and in line with his character. But this idea of Grogu, like he wants your permission. It's just like, it's so sweet. It's so heartbreaking. Like, oh my God, the special effects team that does this kid, like, can we break the Oscars rules to just like give all of them Oscars? Like, all the awards agencies should just be like, we agree that this is a great contribution to pop culture in general. Have some awards. This is acknowledgement of the child in Star Wars.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this would not work if that character were CGI and not a practical effect.
No. Absolutely not.
Even so, I still think Pedro Pascal did a great job.
Incredible.
Oh, phenomenal.
Looking deeply into the puppet's eyes.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely. He absolutely kills it in this scene. Like, holy crap.
Yeah,
good job, bro. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's just like, it's great. Just watch the scene. It's great. If you don't think it's great, don't watch it and watch something else, and just don't talk to me about why you don't like it, because I don't agree.
Yeah,
this is probably
this season. Oh, go ahead.
This episode in particular is, I feel like, some of the best Star Wars we've gotten under the Disney banner.
Absolutely.
I really enjoy Rogue One quite a bit, and I think Mandalorian has overall overtaken what I love about Rogue One. Even the stuff that I really enjoy about Force Awakens is overshadowed by this. I think this is the best thing Disney's done with Star Wars.
Totally agree. My reaction to you guys that I sent, like, the night this came out was like 2020 between this and Clone Wars is the exact opposite of 2019 for Star Wars. And it's great that something about 2020 is this awesome. But yeah, just like how depressing Star Wars felt at the end of last year for me is now like 100% rejuvenated. And for that to turn around that quickly and that significantly is really, I thought I was done again. I was very cynical after Rise of Skywalker.
Well, yeah, luckily Mandalorian premiered last year as well.
Yeah,
and was happening like concurrently when
it literally ended the day
out.
Before it came out.
Yeah, if it had been another year, I would have been like loath to watch Mandalorian when it started.
Oh yeah.
Well, there was still another episode.
Oh yeah, you're right. It was that because we had to learn that force healing was a thing now.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Healing hands. They just have healing hands in Star Wars. That's all.
Do the hand thing. Do the magic hands. Yeah, and again, know we've sang Pascal's praises, and I know I've mentioned before.
Way delayed.
I know. I know I've mentioned before, like how hard it is to do a performance as an actor, especially when your face is obscured. Like I've talked about Carl Urban and Dredd literally performing with only the bottom half of his face, and this season Mando got twice the opportunity to actually show his face and emote, which was one more than last season. But the rest of it is entirely in his vocal performance and the movement of either him or the actor when they're in the suit. And it worked. Like, this show could very easily fail on the strength of having somebody incapable of acting just through physicality and voice.
Yeah.
And they like, at no point have I been like, Mando seems kind of stiff, or I'm not really buying that he feels this way or that way. And I mean, and this is in a show full of amazing performances, a lot of them one-offs.
Well, right. I mean, you don't see, he doesn't vocalize, he doesn't put into words how much he cares about the child until like episode 5 of this season or something, maybe. But we feel it so strongly that when he does, and when we realize the extent of how deeply he cares for this thing, it's just like, yeah, we know. It's not news. It's just, we know that already, and it's because of his physical performance, really.
Yeah, this show's done a lot right. I mentioned earlier that I saw kind of a split reaction with people who were very pro the reveal with Luke, and people who were divided, who thought it was cheap, who thought it was fan service. And without going too into the weeds on it, like I think if you watched through at this point and you weren't moved and you weren't like absolutely elated and giddy and crying all at the same time, like just tap out. Like, your Star Wars is done for you. Like, just go be miserable about something else, because I'm sick of gatekeeping in Star Wars fandom. I'm sick of people pissing and moaning about movies that are over 20 years old in this fandom. Like, just like yeah, the prequels weren't good, but you know what? They're still kind of fun if you don't take them too seriously. So like, just enjoy them or don't. Like, get off the ride and let the rest of us have fun on the roller coaster. Or I'll shove you into a locker.
Oh,
nerds!
Yeah, but it does make sense, because if you compare this with the Palpatine stuff, like, if you were to read The Mandalorian up to this point and on paper, like in a book, and you don't have these limitations of the show in your mind, and you'd get up to this point, you're like, who'd be the Jedi that should show up? It should be Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If you were to like read the sequel trilogy up to the point where right before Palpatine shows up, you'd be like, I have no idea what's going to happen. And then when Palpatine shows up, it's like, oh, okay, this is very exciting, but what? How?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Rian Johnson set us up for something really interesting with Last Jedi. And then again, because of crummy Star Wars fans pissing and moaning, they overcorrected and swung the complete opposite way.
Yeah.
Like, and then they made a movie that almost nobody enjoyed. Like, I don't think anyone came out of Rise of Skywalker and was like, that is exactly the direction I thought this was going to go in.
How could you?
Like, yeah, I completely
it's
get.
nonsensical.
Yeah, I understand feeling burned by that. But they have spent this entire season building up to everything that we saw. Like, and what, 4 or 5 episodes ago, Alex and I were both saying, like, I don't know if we need a Boba Fett series. They made me excited that that's going to happen now within a half a season.
Yeah.
I went from not caring about Boba Fett at all to being very pro Boba Fett, very Proba Fett, if you will.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I'm in the same boat, and we'll talk about that more when we get to that bit.
Now, are they
like,
paying you to be pro Boba Fett, or is this a pro bono pro Boba Fett?
If they're paying me, it's the first I've heard of it. But yeah, Alex is right. Let's get to that post-credit zinger.
Yeah,
baby.
like this is cause that's the end of the episode. Is Luke goes off with the child, and it's beautiful and it's sad, and then it's that it's the end and it's Star Wars, and we have our heroes on the bridge with Gideon and the Darksaber, not knowing what they're going to do next, and that's kind of where we leave them, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And then we get a very somber credit sequence. And then, like you said, we get a stinger, and I'm like, whoa. And then the establishing shot being Jabba's palace. I was like, what?
Oh, yeah, so good.
If people want to call fan service, this is the only part of this episode you could possibly call fan service. But it's also like, I don't care. This is so cool.
Yeah, again, they made us care about Boba Fett, and they made us invested in the character.
Yeah. We inside we see Bib Fortuna is holding court when he is suddenly intruded upon by Fennec Shand, who kills everyone except Bib and his Twi'lek slave, who she frees. And then she is followed by Boba Fett, who promptly kills Bib Fortuna right on the spot.
Oh yeah.
And
after Bib tries to like haggle with him a little bit in subtitles that are styled very, very similarly to the theatrical subtitles from Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll put this image up, and then he settles onto the throne, and we learn that we're gonna get a Boba Fett TV show.
Yeah.
This was such a cool sequence. In my mind, my headcanon, I want to pretend that the Twi'lek slave was the one that Jabba fed to the Rancor, and they just kind of retconned it a little.
I actually thought she might have been. There's a Twi'lek singer who is in Jabba's palace in the special editions.
Ah, yes.
This looks very similar to, but it's not. So.
There it is. That the only flaw in this season. No Jedi rocks. They literally walk us right into it. No Jedi rocks. What was it? Max Rebo band in Jabba's palace?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No Max Rebo band. No Jedi rocks.
No Lapty Neck.
Well, at least we know that. Well, no, actually, did the Max Rebo band die? Did they die on the sail barge?
I hope not. Oh. Please, Lord, no.
They're not expressly shown on the sand barge, are they?
I can't remember now.
Oh, if that's I mean, they could be in this show.
I would love to see Max Rebo come back.
Yeah.
It's a pretty safe bet that Salacious B. Crumb is probably dead.
Yeah.
Aww.
I mean,
okay, they were on the sand barge, but in Legends at least, they jumped off the sail barge before it exploded, so the band is still alive. So they could do it if they wanted to.
They didn't go down with the ship like in Titanic.
Nope. they got bills to pay.
Good on them. Hey, what's better way to not pay your bills than being dead?
They got to keep playing gigs. They're born to play music.
But yeah, I mean, so now where's your excitement level on the book of Boba Fett?
Like I said, I didn't even remotely want a Boba Fett show at all prior to this, and now I feel like I need this Boba Fett show, because what this show kind of feels like it could be is there were a series of Star Wars short story anthologies all around a central theme of something. There was a Bounty Hunters one, there was Mos Eisley Cantina, but there was also Tales from Jabba's Palace, which is one that I always really liked. And this feels like it could basically be a TV version of Tales from Jabba's Palace, like some seedy underworld stuff of this world on Tatooine, other characters in that space, like maybe Max Rebo is still around and plays the palace. Who knows?
Maybe the Rancor Keeper's there.
Maybe the Rancor Keeper's there.
Hopefully they got rid of that thing, because that'd be stinky right now.
He makes an appearance in the Aftermath book. In the same.
Oh, right. I had read about that.
Yeah, he shows up in the same chapter that they reference Cobb Vanth in, because Stinky, Rada the Hutt, Jabba's son, they want to take him and raise him to be take Jabba's place one day. So Malakili is that guy's name.
Interesting. Okay.
I retract my holiday special comments about Lumpy, Itchy, and Mala being the laziest names, and I'm now changing it to Stinky the Hut being the worst name.
Well, Rada is his actual name. Stinky is what Ahsoka calls him.
Still bad. What about you, Ryan? What's your interest level in this Boba Fett show?
Yeah, I don't, like we've kind of said, like this was definitely the most fan servicey part of the episode. I'm glad to have Boba back as a character and a little more fleshed out. He feels like the character that everybody was trying to make him into, but still in a mortal way. Like he feels beatable, like even in the bar scene earlier.
Right.
I want this show to have a really good hook. I want there to be a really good reason for the show to exist other than, hey, we've got Boba Fett back to play with.
Right.
I'm confident that we're going to get that.
Yeah.
And the Fennec Shand angle too.
Ming Na Wen,
yeah. I just watched the first episode that Ming Na Wen was in last season today, and I'm like, remember just like a few weeks ago when this character was dead, and it seemed like it was such a weird waste of her to appear in that one episode, and now she's played a major role in the second half of this season. She is going to be in the Bad Batch, and she's going to be like, second build in this Boba Fett show.
Yeah.
Fennec Shand universe.
Yeah. I'm also pro more bringing in characters that are going to make neck-bearded chuds angry. and maybe they'll go away from Star Wars forever and they'll leave it to people who enjoy it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd be really in for that.
Yeah. I just want to fight between Fennec Shan and Bosk on who's going to actually be the right-hand man.
Oh, that would be great.
I mean, no joke. I'm really hoping that I'm thinking that we might see Bosk.
Forla Manzakis, please.
Yeah.
I feel like the announcement of this show is basically an informal announcement of Bosk in some way, right? Like,
yeah, it's got to be. There's got to be. They're going to have to do. This might be the fan service show.
Yeah.
And if they make one show fan service, I think that's forgivable if they're giving us freaking 24 of them or something.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Jon Favreau like proved himself with Mandalorian, and they're like, you want to do anything else? And he's like, can we finally do this Boba Fett thing?
Oh, and on that, I did want to point out that so it was confirmed today that it's an actual spin-off and it is not going to be season 3 of The Mandalorian. It's not going to be Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett.
That's what I figured.
And the executive producers, so in addition to running Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and New Republic patrollers, troopers, the whatever that thing.
Troops.
Rangers of the New Republic.
Favreau and Filoni are also going to be overseeing Boba Fett along with Robert Rodriguez.
Yes.
That's the other name who is supervising Boba Fett.
Wow.
So like
he did a great job. Yeah.
Yeah.
For a guy who was brought in at the last minute to direct that episode.
Yeah. And maybe in next week's show I'll talk more about this, but I watched a panel today through my union that was between Baz Idion, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name, but the DP on the show, Dave Klein, Matthew Jensen, Bryce Dallas Howard, and the main like visual effects guy on Mandalorian. A panel between all those guys. Some really interesting stuff came up. But Dave Klein's episode, the Robert Rodriguez episode, none of it was shot in the volume. That was all shot on location. And it is the only episode of Mandalorian so far that is shot entirely on location.
I believe it. I mean, it was pretty well contained.
Yeah, it looked great.
And they did a
it
good
makes
job.
me wonder with the Boba Fett show how it's going to look, and because it looked like they just built a huge set here, which is gorgeous.
Looked amazing. It looked the same.
Yeah,
I mean, like wow.
And from what we're seeing of the Andor series, from that behind the scenes look that we got. It looks like they are building way more sets, and it's being like a little more traditional, I'd say, than the Mandalorian. I'm sure they're still using the volume.
I'm sure, yeah.
But it's
also because they had to get those shows up and running before they could build other volumes.
Yes.
Like, there are more of those stages that are being created right now, but I don't think any of them are up and running. So right now, all they got is the one here. But pretty soon they'll be in other places in the world, and it'll become a bit more flexible. But yeah, I think there would have to be a lot of practical set building for this stuff in the beginning.
One thing about this interesting throne, which is in Jabba's palace now, that was not there before, obviously, because the guy couldn't sit on it. But somebody's already like taken a look at the text that's on it and has transcribed it, and it literally translates into Boba Fett is written on the chair.
Whoa.
Which is like, they're like, is this an Easter egg, or does it actually mean something?
Yeah.
So
not Dash Rendar was here.
Not Dash Rendar was here.
Also, Dustin, I think that this also opens up the possibility, since it's going to be like on Tatooine and stuff, and we got the guy wearing Boba Fett armor. I feel like Cobb Vanth and Timothy Oliphant could be making some return appearances.
I am very okay with all of that. I am pro Cobb Vanth. I'm pro Timmy O. Like, yeah, just give Timmy another chance where he can be a cowboy. If it's in space, that's fine.
I really wish we got some more Bib Fortuna though.
Yeah, let's talk about Bib Fortuna. You sent me like one picture of every moment you wanted to talk about in the show, and you sent me 3 slides of Bib Fortuna.
Half of them were Bib Fortuna.
So let's talk about this first one. Yeah, here's him and young Jabba, and him now.
The guy playing Bib Fortuna in this episode is Matthew Wood, sound designer for Lucasfilm. And
who's been working with him for forever, obviously, since episode 1.
Oh,
at
yeah.
least, yeah.
Yeah, and he played Bib Fortuna in episode 1. So
and he's
it's
still,
really cool.
He's still the supervising sound editor on Star Wars.
He
did
is,
all of
yeah.
Mandalorian.
That's what he did
the movies.
primarily
This is what he does.
I also love like that Bib Fortuna, he's gotten bigger. His Laku have gotten bigger.
I love knowing that those gain weight.
Yeah.
And I've always like noticed that Bib Fortuna, you notice it in Return of the Jedi that he's got these longer fingernails, and he's also let those go as well.
Oh man,
they're
I didn't
super
even
long.
notice that until right now. That's so great.
Yeah, the now picture of Bib Fortuna just looks like Michael Rooker in Slither.
It does. It does.
Like mid-mutation.
This was so cool. Just like that's like, yes, this is fan service, but just there's so much story that is told to us just by him being that size and him being on the throne. There is so much that told us with doing, and at the same time doing so little. It's just like really, really cool. So much fun. Yeah.
I mean, and then the other images are just me wanting to talk about how much I love Bib Fortuna.
So here's Bib Fortuna.
I think he's one of the most entertaining performances in Return of the Jedi.
I think
if you just
funny
watch
No, go ahead.
Bib Fortuna, the facial expressions going on are just all over the place, and I love it. Like when he's talking, when Jabba's talking to Han Solo, after he gets thawed out, he's got this ecstatic look on his face. He's so excited, and it's just like this silent, like
That's what's happening right now. Is this ecstatic? It looks like he's gonna eat your face. You know, he looks like. Have you guys ever seen Basket Case? Anybody ever seen Basket Case here?
Yeah,
he looks like
little...
Belial from Basket Case, which is a angry mutant deformed conjoined twin that was removed from his brother and is now very violent. and lives in a basket. He looks like Belial.
Legit, one of my favorite parts of Jedi is always the Jedi mind trick exchange between Luke and Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's just so much fun, and just watching him like sort of aimlessly like repeat as he's walking. Like I lose it every time. It's
I will
so
take you to Jabba now. Yeah, so good.
And then another Bib Fortuna moment that is always so interesting to me is after Jabba brings Leia up to him and he's just, being the real creep that he is. It cuts to Bib and C-3PO and he's got this look on his face every time. He's like in awe and he's surprised and he's like disgusted, but he's intrigued. And it's like he's never seen this side of Jabba before. Like he's like, "What is this? What's going on?" He looks like a child.
I see this as more aroused than anything.
Oh, really? Yeah. Interesting.
I just took it as he never knew that Jabba got horny.
I think Bib likes to watch.
Oh boy.
Oh God. That was on CBS.
It was no wonder.
I had no idea that you felt this way about Bib Fortuna.
Oh yeah,
I've never
he's a fun guy to watch.
It goes Scout Troopers,
shout out
Bib
to
Fortuna.
Michael Carter, the original guy who played Bib Fortuna. He's still with us.
That's cool.
Also, Bib Fortuna says one of our favorite lines.
He does.
Yeah,
He does.
They say
We got a
McClunky in
McClunky.
this.
Yeah.
McClunky. McClunky.
That's the kind of fan service I can get behind.
It's crazy. Like that's in there because I wonder when they shot this. I think it's more recent than the rest of the season, but like McClunky premiered along with the pilot of The Mandalorian. So
Right, and they were
working on
already
it.
shooting season 2 at that point. So
Yeah.
yeah, interesting.
But
Maybe they're laying-
Book of Boba is being shot right now, and then they are going into production of season 3 next year. So this is coming out in December, and then I would say Mando season 3 sometime 2022.
Right, they're not going to run concurrently. Right.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate that we're getting a little bit of a break for Mandalorian. I think they went really big this season. I appreciate giving it a rest. It came to a natural rest in the story, and then we'll get Book of Boba Fett, which whatever that means, and then we'll come back strong with Mandalorian, and then we'll start seeing some of these other Star Wars series that they teased out. I think it's a great release schedule, and we'll still get some Star Wars next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of psyched. Which is weird. Like, I really thought they couldn't make me excited for Star Wars again. I really thought that I had finally been like, nope, you've damaged me for the last time. I am done with this abusive relationship. But no, it's great. I don't know.
It's great.
They did it again.
They did
I
it
am
again.
Boba Fett.
I still
I mean,
have so many holiday special sounds loaded in here. It's wonderful.
Keep them.
You have the nyang, 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 nyang.
That one I do not have anymore. But we got this.
Dare you? You stop that!
So on that note, we'll start wrapping things up here. Before we do, we are going to be doing a season 2 wrap-up show along with further talk about the future of this saga on TV and other forums with Jermaine next week. And then next year, starting in January, we are going to be covering WandaVision when that premieres on Disney Plus on January 15th. And we're going to be following the 6 episodes of that, along with some of the other Marvel stuff that's going to be dropping on Disney Plus. So please join us for that, as we do not have any more Star Wars.
Yeah,
but we are going to get the Mandalorian gallery on Christmas Day,
and we get Bad Batch sometime mid next year too. I think, right?
Yeah. They have not announced the date for that.
So this podcast is now basically just like whatever is on Disney Plus. We do podcast about now.
Yeah.
Too bad the Lizzie McGuire reboot is not happening.
I had the artwork for
My
that
fiance
all
is
made up.
very bummed about it.
Anywho.
So, until next week, Alex, where can people find more of your work?
Twitter and Instagram at Alex Brunel.
All right. And Dustin, how about you?
You can find me at DustinMeadowsComedy.com and at Dustin Meadows on Twitter, Instagram, and soon Twitch.
All right. And Ryan?
You can find me at Harbjagen, that's Harbjagen on Twitter.
Perfect. And you can find the show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, where we stream every week. Reach out to us at whowatchespodcast@gmail.com. And please subscribe, leave reviews on any podcatcher you find us on. We really appreciate all that. And so, until next week, initiate self-destruct sequencing.